We saw clearly once again how important artillery units were in the war of the century. Artillery units, which are one of the most important parts of the ongoing relentless struggle on the front line, are of great importance for the Ukrainian army. Especially during the counteroffensive operations, Ukrainian artillery units played a very important role in the capture of the Russian positions by the Ukrainian army. Ukrainian artillery units, which carried out successive attacks, ensured the dispersal of Russian positions. Meanwhile, the Ukrainian infantry units that are mobilizing are entering the scattered Russian positions by organizing a lining operation and establishing areas of dominance. However, as you can imagine, artillery attacks on the front line alone are not enough for a decisive victory. If Ukraine wants to win victory, it must also destroy the fortifications that feed the Russian army behind the front line. Only in this way can Ukraine end the Russian occupation. In recent days, Ukrainian artillery units have also carried out an important attack. I will try to convey to you the latest developments related to this attack in a moment. But first, I want to ask you a few questions. The world agenda is changing rapidly. As you know, it is quite possible that different wars will break out in the different geographies. In particular, the Russian government can secretly take sides in these wars and target the Western world. Do you think this possibility is strong? Do you think the Russian rulers can start a secret war with the Western world? Would you like to see these topics in our reports? Please specify in the comments. Let's continue our main topic at home. As you know, the Berdyansk region is a very important part region located on the shores of the Sea of Azov. I have tried to convey to you the developments related to this region many times in our reports. This region is of great importance for Russian supplies. But for a long time, there was a silence in this area. The Ukrainian army has reduced its attacks on Berdyansk and similar areas behind the front line because of its focusing on its advance along the Zaporizhian front line. Of course, in order for these attacks to continue, it is necessary to continue supporting the Ukrainian army. Recently, the United States of America announced a new support package for the Ukrainian military. This support package also includes a large number of long-range and high-destructive missiles. This support package has been announced, but delivery has not yet taken place. But even before the delivery took place, the Ukrainian army struck the Berdyansk region. This confirms that if the support continues, the Ukrainian army will win a great victory over the Russian army. Recently, the artillery units of the Ukrainian armed forces carried out a very critical operation, causing great fear and shock to the Russian troops stationed in the occupied Berdyansk. There are reports of explanations at several Russian headquarters in the city of Berdyansk. As a result of our research, we have reached the statements of Melitopol Mayor Ivan Fedorev about this issue. Let me convey to you the explanations in question. At midnight, two powerful explosions occurred near the Berdyansk Municipal High School, where one of the polling centers used by the Russians in illegal election is located. In fact, when you look at it, we see that the Ukrainian army is giving a very critical message to the Russian army and the Russian administration here. As it can be understood from Fedorev's statements, the Ukrainian army targeted a building used by the occupying Russian administration for elections in Berdyansk. In other words, the Ukrainian army seems to have given a clear message with this attack that any elections to be held on behalf of the Russian Federation in the occupied territories will not have legitimacy. According to many local sources, Fedorov made an incomplete statements about the attacks in question. According to local sources, Ukrainian artillery units did not hit the target in question only. At the same time, there were explosions around many headquarters of the Russian army. But of course, these areas claims. As you may remember from our map report and previous reports, the Ukrainian army has hit regions such as Berdyansk, Mariupol, and Melitopol many times before. Therefore, I can say that the accuracy rate of these claims is quite high. So what do these attacks show us? As I stated at the beginning of our report, Berdyansk is a port city. It is connected by sea route from here on the shortest routes between the Black territories of the Russian Federation and the occupied territories in Ukraine. The losses inflicted by the Russian army must be compensated constantly. So in this case, the Berdyansk region is a very important point for the compensating for these losses of the Russian army. The Ukrainian army is actually attacking these regions, preventing both the provision of the supply needed by the Russian army and preventing the Russian army from establishing legitimacy in this region. Therefore, these attacks are very critical. If continued, it seems that the Ukrainian army could gain a significant advantage. Ukrainian artillery units carried out attacks on the Berdyansk region. However, at the same time, operations continue unabated on the Zaporizhia front line, which is the front line to reach the Berdyansk region. Recently, the spokesman of the General Staff of the Ukrainian Armed Forces, Andriy Kovalev, made statements on the latest situation on the Zaporizhia front line. Kovalev used the following statements in these statements. "We are very close to reaching the Sea of Azov. The Russian invaders in the region are very uncomfortable both because of the victories we have won on the front and because of the attacks we have organized on the occupied territories. But they will continue to be uncomfortable. Our priority goal is to create an area where our infantry can advance. In the meantime, we will continue to target the bases of the Russian invaders of the Azov Sea coast. The administration there does not have any legitimacy." Kovalev's statements also cause us to make the same comments about the Russian legitimacy, as I mentioned just now. The Ukrainian army does not want a Russian legitimacy to be established in the region. Therefore, the Ukrainian army is targeting areas where the Russian legitimacy is trying to be ensured. In fact, it may also be possible to say that these attacks are a kind of psychological warfare. While these events continue to take place on the front line and the occupied territories, the Russian capital is being shaken by the explosions in Moscow. Recently, a rather violent explosion occurred at the Federal Security Building in the Russian capital, Moscow. The explosion was heard almost from the entire city. After the explosion, a large fire broke out. Russian sources, on the other hand, did not explain about the incident. Based on this, I can say the separatist Russian sabotage groups were behind these explosions. Because usually the Russian government tries to prevent the names of these groups from being heard. Now it's your turn. What do you guys think? Do you think the attacks carried out by the Ukrainian artillery on targets on the coast of Azov Sea are effective to this? Will these attacks hinder the legitimacy that the Russian military is trying to establish in the region? What do you think about the future of the war when interpreted together with the developments on the front line? Mention it in the comments. I'm reading and caring about all your comments.